Welcome back to the Pro Ticker Podcast, your Wednesday morning edition covering major financial magazine headlines, everyone. Today, we're doing something a bit different, embarking on a deep dive into some truly fascinating articles that landed on our desk this week. Our mission, really, is to pull out the most important insights for you, give you a shortcut to being well-informed, maybe uncover some surprising facts, and, connect the dots across topics that might seem unrelated at first glance. We'll be navigating from, well, the accelerating impact of AI on workforces and global economies over to the intricate world of tariff engineering. Then we'll feel the ripple effects of geopolitical tensions, particularly on oil and currency markets. And we'll also touch on some pretty significant shifts in the electric vehicle industry and the emerging landscape of stablecoins. Quite a mix today.
It really is. And what's fascinating here, I think, is how these seemingly distinct headlines, tech giants' AI strategies, international trade policies, geopolitical shifts, they all weave together. They paint this dynamic, almost urgent picture of the current global financial environment. We'll be drawing insights today from sources like CNBC, MarketWatch, and Bloomberg. Good stuff.
Okay, so let's kick things off then. Let's unpack this escalating conversation around artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
It feels like it's moved beyond just innovation, right? Now it's profoundly reshaping jobs, company structures, the whole nine yards.
Absolutely. And we're seeing some, frankly, stark warnings. Take Geoffrey Hinton, often called the godfather of AI. CNBC reported he suggests there's, get this, a 10% to 20% chance AI could actually displace humans entirely.
Wow.
Yeah. And he clearly believes these risks aren't being taken seriously.
That's a heavy statement from someone like him. I mean, his credentials, the Turing Award.
Exactly. And he's specific about the short-term risks, too. Things like AI hallucinations, where the AI basically makes stuff up. And the creation of fake media, deepfakes, becoming easier and easier. Plus, the automation of entry-level white-collar jobs. Although, interestingly, he acknowledges some leaders still think AI will create more jobs eventually. It's real split in perspective.
And he's not just warning, he's calling for action, isn't he? More research, government regulation.
Right. He's pushing for more dedicated research to really understand the potential and the risks. He's urging for government regulations, and quickly. He even mentioned proposing worldwide bans on AI-powered military robots. Said on podcasts that guardrails need putting in place soon.
And on a personal level, too, something about scams.
Yes, he gave some practical advice, like diversifying your money across different banks and regularly backing up your data to external hard drives. Just basic precautions against potential AI-augmented scams. It shows how broad his concerns are.
Okay, so connecting that to the corporate world, are leaders actually listening? Are they planning for this?
Well, yes, it seems so. We're seeing major corporate leaders echoing these concerns, or at least proactively planning for AI's influence. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy, for instance, he sent a memo quite explicitly stating Amazon's corporate workforce will shrink in the coming years because of generative AI tools.
He actually said it'll shrink.
He did. His view is, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, they'll need fewer people for some jobs, but more people for other, newer types of jobs.
And Amazon's already putting its money where its mouth is, right? Using AI in the warehouses and stuff.
Oh, yeah. They're deploying it across their operations, the fulfillment network, inventory, demand forecasting, making warehouse robots more efficient. Jassy calls generative AI a once-in-a-lifetime reinvention. That's a big statement. The pace is just incredible.
And it's not just Amazon.
No, not at all. MarketWatch reported Shopify CEO expects employees to actively prove AI's utility in their roles now. And Klarna CEO Sebastian Siemiatkowski partly attributed a 40% headcount reduction to AI investments and attrition.
40%?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's important to get the other side, too. Duolingo's CEO, Louis Fonon, he sees AI differently more as a tool to speed up work, not replace people. And he says they're still hiring.
So a real mix of approaches then.
Definitely highlights the complexity of how this is actually playing out in the real world.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The battle for AI supremacy. It's not just about the tech itself, is it? It's about talent and, well, huge amounts of money.
Oh, absolutely. The talent war is fierce. Sam Altman from OpenAI, he mentioned on a podcast that Meta has been trying aggressively to poach their staff, apparently offering like $100 million bonuses. Insane numbers.
$100 million. Seriously. Did anyone take it?
Altman claims none of OpenAI's best people have accepted so far. But it shows the lengths companies will go to.
And Meta sees OpenAI as its biggest competitor.
That's what Altman heard, yeah. And it fits with Mark Zuckerberg's push to build a superintelligence AI lab. Plus, remember that huge deal, $14.3 billion for 49% stake in Scale AI. That brought Scale AI's founder over to Meta to lead a superintelligence lab. They're serious.
Meanwhile, you've got Elon Musk's xAI burning through cash at an incredible rate.
That's the report from Bloomberg, yeah. Something like $1 billion a month.
$1 billion a month.
And they expect a $13 billion burn in 2025, just massive costs for servers, chips. Compare that to their projected revenue for 2025, maybe $500 million. OpenAI is expecting, what, $12.7 billion? Huge difference.
But xAI has Musk's deep pockets, I guess, and access to X's data.
Exactly. Those are the potential advantages. Musk's willingness to spend long-term and direct access to X's constantly updated data for training models, that could cut costs significantly. They're apparently projecting profitability by 2027, so it's a long game for them.
Okay, this whole AI arms race, how are global powers reacting, especially with all the trade tensions, like with China?
Great question. MarketWatch described China's strategy as a trillion yuan gamble on AI and chips. It seems driven by this wartime mentality because of U.S. sanctions limiting their access to advanced chips, especially NVIDIA's top stuff.
So the sanctions are forcing their hand, in a way.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's leading to some, well, strange bedfellows. Huawei and SMIC, China's top chip maker, used to be rivals, now reportedly collaborating. They worked together on that 7nm Kirin chip for the Mate 60 Pro phone. That was a big domestic win for them, showing they could make progress despite restrictions.
And Chinese AI firms are adapting too.
Yeah, companies like Baidu and Alibaba are optimizing their AI models for older chips. And domestic chip makers like Byron and More Threads are racing to offer alternatives to NVIDIA, even if they aren't quite as powerful yet.
It's not just countries, though, right? Amazon's AWS is making its own chips.
That's right. AWS is directly challenging NVIDIA's dominance with custom chips, Graviton 4, and the upcoming Trainium 2 and 3. CNBC reported on this. Their goal seems to be reducing AI training costs for their cloud customers and controlling more of the AI infrastructure stack themselves.
And are people actually using these AWS chips for serious AI?
Well, Amazon backed Anthropic, the AI startup behind the Claude Opus 4 model, with $8 billion.
Right.
And significantly, Claude Opus 4 actually trains on AWS's Trainium 2 GPUs. So that proves major AI models can be trained effectively on non-NVIDIA hardware.
So the chip war is heating up.
Definitely. The big question is how much market share AWS can actually take from NVIDIA in the next few years.
So boiling this all down, what does this AI whirlwind mean for you, the listener?
Well, it shows the rapid evolution isn't just a tech story. It's reshaping job markets, creating new investment opportunities, and impacting national security globally.
Yeah, it feels like this fundamental tension, right, between amazing innovation and efficiency and the real disruption to jobs and how we value human work.
Exactly. Understanding these shifts is just crucial for navigating what's coming next.
Okay, let's shift gears. Moving from high-tech AI to maybe something a bit more old school, but still fascinating. Global trade and tariff engineering.
Ah, yes, tariff engineering. It sounds technical, but it's basically a legal strategy companies use to navigate global duties. CNBC defined it as tweaking products just enough to qualify for lower duties. One expert called it the clever art of outsmarting customs.
Clever art, I like that. And it's not new, is it? There was some story about sugar and molasses.
Ah, yes. It goes way back to 1882. An importer coated sugar with molasses to avoid higher duties on lighter-colored sugar. And the Supreme Court actually ruled it was perfectly legal, as long as the goods were honestly declared and available for inspection.
Wow, 1882, so that set a precedent.
It certainly did. And companies are still using similar strategies today. Winnebago, the RV maker, mentioned in an earnings call they're working with experts on tariff mitigation, including engineering.
And Columbia Sportswear, too, adding pockets.
That's right. They've talked about adding small, zippered pockets below the waist on women's clothing, specifically considering the tariff impact right from the design stage. It shows how baked in these tactics can be.
But it can't be easy for all products, surely, like electronics or medical devices?
No, definitely not. For those highly regulated sectors, even small changes can trigger massive validation processes. Experts say it could add, 12 to 24 months of testing, certification. It's a fine line between legitimate redesign and fraud.
So if companies are using these strategies, how does it affect the bigger picture? Inflation, the Fed's decisions.
Well, Rick Reeder at BlackRock made an interesting observation, reported by MarketWatch. He said the pricing transmission from tariffs has been amazingly light so far.
Meaning companies are just eating the cost.
Largely, yes. They've been absorbing the costs rather than passing them directly to consumers, which has helped keep a lid on inflation to some extent.
And the Fed still expected to hold rates steady today.
That's the wide expectation, yes. All eyes are really on their dot plot now for hints about potential rate cuts in 2025. Remember the March plot hinted at maybe 2 cuts?
And Rader thinks a September cut is possible.
He suggested it's possible if we see more transparency on tariff deals, potentially leading to cost pass-throughs, and also some softening in the labor market. He also floated the idea of the Fed ending its quantitative tightening, or QT, program to boost market liquidity,
Yeah.
given all the current uncertainties.
Right, the uncertainties. And here's where it gets really interesting again, because those are so tied to geopolitics, aren't they?
Absolutely. The Israel-Iran conflict, for example, has really intensified.
Yeah, and didn't former President Trump make some strong statements recently?
He did, yes. According to reports citing his Truth Social post, he demanded unconditional surrender from Iran and made threats against its leader. We're just reporting what was published, of course.
And the market reaction was immediate, right? Oil prices spiked.
Sharply. On Tuesday, WTI crude jumped 4.3% to around $74.85, and Brent crude was up 4.4% to about $76.45. CNBC covered that.
And volatility is up too.
Hugely. The CBOE crude oil ETF volatility index hit its highest close in over 3 years. That signals serious market unease, pricing in a wide range of tail risks, as they say. The big worry is always the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of global petroleum liquids flow through there.
Has it been disrupted?
Key infrastructure has apparently been spared so far, but oil CEOs from major companies like Total Energies and Shell are definitely raising alarms about the potential impact on global supply and prices if things escalate further.
Though Morgan Stanley thinks Asia could handle prices up to $85.
That was their assessment, yes, that Asia is relatively well positioned within that range.
It's fascinating how these tensions then spill over into currencies and central bank thinking outside the U.S.-China, for instance.
Yes, the People's Bank of China Governor Pan Gongsheng outlined a vision for a new global currency order. Bloomberg reported this. He's aiming for less reliance on a single currency, meaning the U.S. dollar.
And the yuan is gaining ground.
It seems to be. Its global status is rising, and interestingly, U.S. tariff risks are actually pushing some U.S. exporters to look for settlements in other currencies. China's actively promoting the yuan too, with things like the digital yuan for international use and exploring yuan futures trading.
What about the dollar itself?
Technically, despite a recent downtrend, some indicators are suggesting a potential short-term bounce might be coming. It seems correlated with rising 10-year Treasury yields.
So what does this complex web of trade, rates, and conflict mean for you?
Well, it means whether you're dealing with product costs potentially hit by tariffs, trying to understand interest rate moves, or just feeling the market jitters from global conflicts affecting oil. It all impacts your financial landscape.
Yeah, your purchasing power, your investments, it's all connected. Being aware helps you prepare for a pretty dynamic environment.
Exactly.
Okay, third big area. Let's shift gears again, this time to the electric vehicle market. Seems like U.S. policy might be creating a different path compared to the rest of the world.
That's what a Bloomberg NEF report suggests, yes. It indicates that certain potential policy shifts could make the U.S. an EV laggard, projecting the U.S. might trail China, Europe, and even the global average adoption rate all the way out to 2040.
A laggard until 2040. What policies are they talking about?
The report points to things like potentially eliminating EV subsidies, easing fuel economy standards for gas cars, phasing out consumer tax credits for EVs, and challenging California's authority to set its own emission rules. Taken together, these could really dampen EV sales in the U.S. by hitting both demand incentives and supply mandates. It's quite a potential divergence.
And that contrasts sharply with China, right? They seem to be full steam ahead.
Absolutely. China is expected to account for nearly 2/3 of global plug-in sales this year. A big factor there is that EVs are often already cheaper than comparable gasoline cars. Plus, the government has strong trade-in incentives. China produced almost 70% of the world's EVs last year.
Even Europe is easing up a bit.
Yes, the EU relaxed its CO2 emission standard somewhat, which is also affecting EV sales forecasts there. Different dynamics everywhere.
So while traditional auto markets are shifting, there's this whole other evolution happening in currency, right? Stablecoins.
Exactly. And there's been a major development there. The Senate passed the Genius Act recently. CNBC called it the crypto industry's first major legislative win. It basically establishes a federal framework for U.S. dollar-pegged stablecoins.
Okay, a federal framework. That sounds significant. What does it actually mean, practically speaking, for finance for users?
Well, it sets up crucial guardrails.
Yeah.
Things like requiring full reserve backing, monthly audits, anti-money laundering compliance. That's important for trust. But the big practical impact is it opens the door for a much wider range of players, banks, fintechs, even big retailers, to issue their own digital dollars.
Hey, that could shake things up.
Immense disruptive potential, yeah. Because stablecoins offer things like instant settlement and lower transaction fees. They fundamentally challenge the legacy payment rails by cutting out middlemen.
Are companies actually using them now?
Oh, yes. Shopify is already using USDC, that's a major stablecoin, for payments via partners like Coinbase and Stripe. Deutsche Bank put out a report estimating stablecoin transactions hit $28 trillion last year.
28 trillion.
Trillion, yes. Apparently surpassing MasterCard and Visa combined in transaction value. And even big banks like JP Morgan Chase are getting in takings. They launched JPMD, a deposit token for institutional clients, offering 24/7 settlement. Is becoming real.
And here's where it gets really interesting again, the politics of it all. This new asset class is right in the political spotlight now.
Very much so. The Genius Act, for instance, ended up not including a provision that would have barred the president from profiting from digital assets, despite some lawmakers pushing for it.
Right, and there were some reports about former President Trump's crypto holdings.
Yes. CNBC reported on his first financial disclosure as president. It apparently revealed he earned at least $57 million in 2024 alone from token sales, linked to World Liberty Financial. That's a crypto platform aligned with his brand. The report also mentioned he holds nearly 16 billion WLFI governance tokens, potentially worth close to $1 billion on paper. Again, just stating what the source material reported here.
And his family is involved in other crypto ventures too?
Reportedly, yes, including things like the Trumpy meme coin, a significant Bitcoin treasury around $2.5 billion mentioned, and even a new mining firm. It just really highlights this merger of emerging financial tech and high-level politics and how public figures are directly engaging now.
So wrapping this section up, what's the takeaway for you?
Well, whether it's thinking about the future of driving and how U.S. EV policy might differ globally, or how you might actually make payments soon with digital dollars, these aren't just niche topics anymore.
Right. They're actively shaping the consumer world, the investment landscape, and the rules are still being written, which could change things quickly for everyone.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, just consider how quickly all these forces, AI, geopolitics, trade rules, digital finance, are converging and bouncing off each other. The insights we've shared today, they aren't just headlines floating in space. They're indicators of really significant and accelerating shifts that are going to impact global markets and, frankly, individual opportunities.
Indeed. It's definitely a complex tapestry, isn't it? But hopefully understanding some of these threads helps make sense of the bigger picture. We really hope this deep dive gave you some valuable aha moments, maybe a clearer lens to view tomorrow's financial news through. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you all tomorrow morning with new headlines from major financial magazines.